Greetings, my friends, and welcome to Complete Caning Course Part 6. Before we get started today, I really want to thank you. You probably don't know the history of this, and I'll keep it brief, but I started making videos in 2013 at the suggestion of a friend. He had seen my struggle with finding the right information for what I wanted to make, which was cane. And I'd read all the books and delved into it as much as I could, but I couldn't get very many videos telling me what I needed to learn. So I started making them myself. I just had a blast with it. Everyone was so sweet and supportive of it. I got so much self-esteem, from people saying they liked it and they learned things. And as time went by, I noticed there were things I could not find. The original cane benders, which are just 6-inch lucite rods, were something I couldn't find. I used metal pieces from broken down pasta machines, so you'll see it in my old videos. I used dowels, square ones, round ones. There was a thing missing in the clay world that I needed for myself. That led to tinypendora.com, and what's important that I convey to you is that that's now a family business that we all work at. So not only do we love doing it and appreciate your business, but we all have to go get a real job if you don't like the tools and the videos anymore. We don't want that to happen. But seriously, I do thank you, and I feel like the luckiest person in the world to get to make videos, make art, and create tools, all wrapped around something I like and all benefiting myself and my family. So thanks again for your support. I hope you keep watching. I hope you keep liking it. Email me at busypandora@gmail.com. Let me know anything that you don't like or do like or want to see, and I'll do that for you. So thanks again.
Well, jewelry making. I've been doing it for over 40 years, and it still fascinates me. I really like making beads now that I'm into polymer clay, of course. These are about 6 years old. They're built on wooden cores, a little bit smaller than the ones that we have today. And I think I've gotten 1,000 compliments on that little necklace. These bead cores are unfinished, but you can use finished wood. It works just as well. And you can also make your own little bead cores out of cubes, which is what these are made out of, 6-sided cubes with slices of cane on them. Or you can make rolled beads like the ones on top. They're really just tube beads with a rolled inner core and a sheet of cane slice over them. So you've got tons of options. These two pieces don't have any clear coat or of any kind on them. They're just kind of a satiny, velvety kind of look, which I thought went well with that pattern and those colors. Just a plain back. This one is some of the same cane, made a different way. And I've got a decorative back and some Lisa Pavelka Magic Gloss UV resin on them. So let me show you how to do these. All of them are easy and all of them are fun. I'm going to start today with this nice roll of clay. It's Primo, let's see, Antique Gold, and it's mixed with Primo Accents Yellow Gold Glitter. That's the number 1 sheet or thickest sheet on my machine. And I've got it, I don't know how wide it is, maybe 3 inches wide. But it doesn't really matter. I'm making extra because once I'm making a roll of bead cores, I figure why not make enough. So I'm going to cut that, and it's just under about 1 inch around. And I'm smoothing the seam, but it doesn't have to be fancy. It's going to be on the inside, and that'll disappear by the time we have our cores made. I'm going to pierce those right in the center with this Amico bead pin. Those are really hard to get now, so if you can get a piece of hanger wire, something like that, nice and rigid, nice and straight. You have to go to the cleaners, I guess, if you can find a cleaners, endangered species. So you go down each end of your little roll until the holes meet together. And then lightly, super lightly roll it on your work surface. You never want to rub very hard on there. You don't want to roll it with very much pressure because it causes a rattle on the inside that's kind of like a hole, and it's never right after that. So Be really gentle. We're just rolling enough now and then just to keep it symmetrical. Otherwise, it's really reduced like any round cane. You're pulling, stretching, kind of kneading and squeezing, just like any round cane. And I'm going to cut this part off because I'm going to use that part later, but you do put your excess tube material just back on the pin when you go to use it. I'm going to roll it a little bit more, again, to get it going, and then pull and stretch. So you get the hang of this. You'll feel if it goes wrong on you. Now it's going to have a little wonky end like any round cane. And you can feel where to cut that, where it starts to soften and flare out a little bit. So just remove that. You've got some really nice, even core material. You can use scrap for this. I use this color because it's the color that's going to be throughout this design. But you can use scrap for these cores. So get a good measurement on here because you're going to want to cut your cane slices to match that core. It's really hard to do it any other way. So what I do is take a small piece of cane like this and I make it the same size as that bead core so that it wraps around long ways. Now, believe it or not, I'm going to set this piece aside because it's only going to take this little tiny cube to do 6 nice tube beads. You can make as many as you want. You've got more cane probably, and I know you've got more bead core sitting over there. I'm going to put this together, and I just need to reduce it enough to make it a little bit more wide so I can cut 6 slices out of it. And I'm making it a little bit shorter so that it fits my bead core. It's really super easy, and you can do it with any cane, and any cane looks good. I didn't make this cane on camera. I'm sorry about that. I was just playing around, and I just didn't even turn the camera on. I don't think I can duplicate it. I think it was kind of I won't say accident. I was kind of daydreaming. Okay, so I'm going to cut 6 slices out of this, but I'll show you the first one. You have to watch me cut it. And around it goes, and we know it's going to fit. We just measured it. When we close it up, just pinch it shut. Doesn't be perfect. We could roll it together in a minute. Just making sure it's getting stuck together. And adjust our lines a little bit like that, and just roll over. I use my 1/4 inch cane bender for the small work, and then I use the tiny little 1/8 inch one for really tiny stuff. So I made 6, and I'm going to settle them down with this patty wax. That's what it's called. It's from the restaurant supply store. And of course, every time I say patty wax, my daughter has to say, "Give the dog a bone." Like every time. Yeah, the torture. Anyway, that's what those are called. They come in a little box. I guess they're for hamburgers. Now to cut, you just want to roll like that with your blade stationary. It's a lot easier than trying to move the blade. And the reason I have them separated by a little bit of gold there is it's just a lot easier. You think you could just lay a big sheet on there and cut it into beads. It doesn't work at all. You want to have some margin on each end in between a little space so that you can cut them cleanly. And I just put them on a tile. That's the easiest way to bake them. So scrap, I know you want to talk about scrap. We've all got way too much scrap in the world, right? A lot of scrap laying around, and we're always trying to get rid of it. Well, the thing that scrap has that no other clay has is it has every color that's in your bead, okay? Your cane there is coordinated perfectly with your scrap at all times. So we want to use that if we can, but most of it is like mine. It's over-reduced, it's starting to look like nothing. So I cut it about the thickness of a nickel, put it through the pasta machine. Now I can see it. It's got a lot more character, and I can silk screen it. These are from Oh Joy Creations. Mary Joy Coleman makes them, and they're beautiful. And you're going to want to get some. And I'll show you how they work. This is just a little strand of gold acrylic paint. Any kind works. Don't have to get any special kind. Any kind of squeegee works. Credit card works. And you just wipe it off pretty cleanly. And make sure you have your little bin of water always around, because you're not going to want to ruin your pretty screens. These are super high quality, but we can't let the paint dry them. So once you drop it in the water there, you don't have to do anything else. You know, you can leave it there till you're ready to wash them, as long as they don't dry out. So now I can make some really neat things with this. I can make 2 beads out of that. I can make wood beads out of that. Why not? There's a dry piece. You have to let your acrylic paint dry for about 30 minutes. These are already dry, I made them before. And I'm going to show you how to wrap a wooden core. You need to have a really accurate measurement on these, just like the other one, so that you're not trying to trim off clay, you know, when it's awkward to do so. But instead of measuring every single piece I cut, I just make templates out of scrap clay and bake them up. And I know that that is the exact same size that I just measured that bead. And I made a little one for smaller beads. You can make a little template for, you know, all the beads that you like to work with. So I'm going to cut them out. Now I don't have to, you know, fuss with stopping and you know, wondering if they're going to fit. I'm going to put some liquid clay on my bead core. This is liquid clay rather than Bake and Bond, because it's a little bit neater to work with for this, and it works just as well. Be sure you get it on the edges, because you're going to wrap your veneer over the edge of the bead. Just cut a little bit off the edge, because believe me, every time you pick up this little thin piece of veneer, it's going to stretch a little bit. So no matter how accurate your first cuts were, it's bound to stretch. So I just cut a little edge off of each one. It always works out. Now I'm going to line these up, make sure they don't overlap. Make sure I have a nice clean seam, and bring it up and over the edge. It just takes a minute, but it makes a big difference, and the seam will disappear if you have the seams buttered up together like that. Okay, so it's becoming warmer in your hands now, and it's going to cooperate. You don't want any folds in it. So just take your time, kind of like covering an egg or a bowl or something. There's a little bit of finessing it on there. You get more and more used to it. And we coax. And there we go. I like to kind of press mine against the work surface when it's at this stage and make a nice clean edge on there. Not too hard, but just make sure it's on there nice and tight. And once you've got it the way you want it, you can get ready to trim it off with your X-Acto knife. Lean your knife on the inside edge, because you're not trying to, cut off anything that's showing there. That's going to stay there. So leave that edge on there, and just run your blade around the inside. I take a piercing tool and poke some air holes, and it does really help with little blisters. Sometimes when you're covering any surface, little air bubbles will pop out, porous items like wood, make little blisters. You can really prevent a lot of blisters by making some little, innocuous, not too noticeable air holes in the edge. Also, when you take it out of the oven, just get your hot pad and press down on any little bumps you might see. I just cook them up like that. I just put all those beads on a piece of tile. Now, when I glaze them with deep shine, I put them, back on the beading pin and prop them up in there, but you can just bake them on the tile. So here are some cutters. I don't know where I got these cutters. Somebody sent them to me, and now I can't find who it was. I feel bad about that. They're very nice. I'll tell you someday. But you can also get some beautiful cutters over at Joy Creations. She doesn't just have silk screens. She's got silk screens and cutters. She's putting in more in her store all the time. So you want to go see Mary Joy Coleman at O'Joy Creations. She's got really, really good customer service. So I'm going to take this and get my pendant ready. Get my little pieces in there the way I want them. And this can be, gosh, you know, any size or shape. I particularly kind of like that shape of cutter, but you see I've done hearts and ovals. I like sideways ovals, you know, that are like pierced across the top 2 times and hang out to the sides. You've probably seen them in my, you know, pictures. But there's as many shapes for pendants as there are, you know, humans, so just get it squared up a little bit and make sure that you like the way it's looking, and then you can burnish it. Best to burnish it now before you try to put the layers together, because that way you're not going to smash anything or make it uneven. I do both sides because if there's any bump I didn't see, I want to get rid of that now. There we go. And then I'm going to put it on some of that nice gold I have left. That's still the #1 setting. I really like to sandwich my gold or my middle layer, if it's pretty, between a decorative background and the cane slice. So I'll show you how I do that today. But honestly, you can use a texture sheet like this, and that can just be the back. So if you're going to do that, you texture it, you flip it over, you know, you cut it out. But I want 3 layers. I like something a little more substantial for pendants. And then for earrings, I just use 2 layers. I'm going to kind of mark out where I want my pieces to lay. I just want to make sure that all the layers are covering the surface I'm going to be cutting out of, so I don't end up with a blank spot anyplace. And I can save those other 2 pieces for my earrings. Now I've got my gold ready. I know it's about the right size, and I'm going to take some of my silk screened scrap, and I'm going to make a pretty back on this. I probably fooled around with this scrap. I mean, so much. I've already made so much stuff out of it. This one, I really like those like feathery things. She told me the name of it, you know. Joy did, but I already forgot. But yeah, I like it like that. And that's where I want my, you know, I want to cut it where I really like the way the leaves are laid out. Just need to roll over that a little bit. You have enough there to play with. You're just bonding it together lightly. You don't need to mash it. I don't think pendants should be paper thin. I like them to have a little bit of body to them. I'll show you another reason I like to sandwich them, because it makes such a pretty edge. A lot of people put like a band trim around the edge and stuff like that, which looks beautiful. I don't do it though, because I really want to see the layers. I think they just lend a lot of interest to this piece. My leaves came out, the feather leaves came out just the way I wanted them. So you take your little X-Acto, and this is my method of putting in a bail. I've got a heart-shaped spoon bail that I really like, but it's pretty substantial, and I want to make sure it goes down into that pendant without damaging it, bending it. So I'm going to go in kind of layered cuts, you know, like surgery there. I'm going to go in a little bit at a time, because I don't want to just jam the blade in there and wrinkle everything up. So I want to check and see if my bail is going to fit. It's pretty deep, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Just make sure I'm not going to put any stress on this when I put that finding in. If you have any play in that bail after it's baked, drop the tiniest bit of super glue on around the edges at the top, just around any place you can see where there's any kind of a void. But I have really good luck with these because I close them up beforehand pretty well. Bacon bond, I don't know. Bacon bond's a good thing, but you don't really need it for metal to clay bond because that's not what it's made for. It's a clay to clay bond. For the earrings, I'm going to take 8 slices of the smaller cane because I like the scale of the earrings having a little bit smaller design. And I'm going to make the squares and cut them out just like I did before. Now this only just has the gold on the back, so it's just a 2-layer one. Put on my little eye screws. I kind of screw them in. You can sort of jam them in, but I get a better, they stay in better when they're actually kind of screwed in. And also I like the fact that you can turn them either way depending on the findings you're using. When they're screwed in, they kind of work more like a screw than a nail being stuck in there. You'll have time to adjust that after it's baked. For the dangle, I just make a little piece of hardware like this. Now you can use eye screws for both, or you can use these findings for both. I just wanted to show you both so, in case you don't have one or the other, you could substitute it. But that's just an eye pin with a hook bent in it. Then you make a little pilot hole in the bottom of the earring, or you can do it with pendants too. It's really cute. When you make the pilot hole, now you can poke your little hook up there, and it's never coming out. If you just stick a straight wire in there, it can slip right back out. But that hook really holds it in for, time and all eternity. So you'll see that kind of, if it's popping up toward the top, don't worry too much. Make sure it doesn't pop through, and then you pinch it right back down, flatten it. It's going to be good as can be. And you can hang something from it. Be so cute. I got my square pairs, and I'm going to take that little log of scrap, and we're going to make our 6-sided cube beads. It's a little bit easier to make a round thing into a square, with some kind of tools, because just pinching out the edges of a log is kind of hard to do. So I stick it in there because that's the size I want it to turn out. That's the size of my cane, same size as my square pair, excuse me. I do have square benders that size too, which are solid rods, but these are hollow rods, and they nest together. All right, so you take your slices. I took thin slices of that cane that was left. It was quite a bit of it, really. And I'm putting them on there. Cover each side of the cube. And your slices don't have to be perfect, and your base doesn't have to be perfect. They turn out really cute. And once all the slices are on, all the sides are covered, just take a tiny rod like this and close all the seams so you don't end up with any cracks in it. I'm going to warm it up, and I'm going to roll it off camera for just a couple minutes. And that's always a shape that my beads come out when I roll beads. And I like football shape. I think it's pretty cool. But my favorite shape is kind of like a mashed barrel shape like this. I think that looks really cute. It hooks up to other beads and spacers really well to have those flat edges, and it makes it easier to pierce. But if you want to make them all the way round, they turn out gorgeous. In this case, I drilled the round ones, but it wasn't really because it's easier. I drilled them because I forgot to make holes in them. But either way, it took about 2 minutes to drill them. So you can make them round if you like. You want to please yourself. That's what it's all about. So as far as assembly goes, this was the one we were starting with. That's why I'm showing it. It's the one that, that this video was made about. I keep all my my jewelry findings the same color, and I keep all the beads the same color in a box of their color. I do that because it's much easier to find what you need to find when it's all, together like that. I can look at everything I've got that's green, everything I've got that's gold, and that's very helpful. Now that's a tip. Also, keep a lot of neutral colors, like champagne and these clear around, because they really add a lot to something like this. They break up the beads, and they look good with whatever kind of findings that you're going to put on. I use lobster claws at both ends, make it super easy to put on and take off. Right-handers, left-handers. It's just as easy as putting a ring on there, and I think it's a nice touch. These are some ball head pins. They're kind of like regular head pins, but they have a teeny ball on one end. And I got those out because I wanted to use them with those small cone-shaped little beads back there, the ones behind my hand, the kind of teardroppy ones, to make dangles. Now these are some crimp covers. And a cool thing about crimps, look, I happen to have antique gold crimp beads, but you can use any color crimp beads because the crimp cover is going to go over. So, that's good to know. You don't have to go out and buy matching everything, This is beadle on 7-strand. I like it, but I've used many kinds of material, and it worked out fine. So use what's available to you. You do need some clips. I'm going to have them in my store probably tomorrow because I went ahead and bought a bunch of them for you. It's just so much better to bead with clips than to worry about tying something on the end and crimping something on the end. I'm going to stop and do these because I want to put them into cure while we make our first necklace. And what I do with my Lisa Pavelka Magic Gloss, it's a UV resin, it's odorless. I have it at tinypandora.com, of course. I just put a little margin just around the edges. So you put a little skinny line of Magic Gloss around the edges. You cure it for 3 minutes, and then you fill it in. And that way you don't have it pull away from the edges. Because doming resins are going to try to dome, and we're not going to get away from that. But it does work to do it this way. So you make the margin, cure it for 3 minutes, then you fill it in and just pull the resin right over the edge that you already made. And cure that for 5 minutes in a UV light, and you just get a gorgeous finish. Lasts for eons. Next, I want to show you a trick I have when I'm using great big whole beads like these, because you're asking yourself, how are you going to string that? What a mess, it's going to flop all over. True. So even with those flat end pieces, it still flops around. So this is what I do. I keep a lot of little inexpensive, well, all different size, cheap plastic beads around. They're nice and lightweight. You can have a nice stash of them for any kind of bead you're going to want to fill up. And when you do this, your necklace hangs perfectly in the center the way it's supposed to. And that wire doesn't wave around inside there, and it'll look bad forevermore. So see what I mean? So now it's going to be even, and you can use big hole beads with smaller hole beads without them, fighting you back. I still like those flat spacers with these kind of beads, but you don't have to have them. If your end finish is looking good, you could put a round bead there. It's still going to look really pretty. But these flat spacers have come in really handy because I use a lot of this type of bead. If I ever remember where I got them, I'll get a whole bunch for the store. You might be able to find them. Now I've got my little mashed round ones that I made, and they're what I wanted to go next to that big bead. I put deep shine on all the beads when you weren't looking. And I put deep shine on that center bead as well. It's just kind of hard to do resin on round things, and I'm not very good at it. I don't know how people do it. So I use deep shine, which is a brush-on UV resin. It's kind of like a UV Varathane. It's just a lot more scratch proof. So I'm going to put my beads on there. And this is the thing about using clip on one end. If I had strung them thinking I have to know how many I'm going to start with and I have to know where it's going to stop and start, I can just go now outward toward my edges, seeing where I'm going and how I want my beads placed and how I want to fill in the ends, how long I want it to be. And I can go back and forth from that center point, really seeing how it looks rather than stringing it from end to end. I don't know why I used to do that, but I did it for years. So now I can stop and add my other side, evaluate a little bit, and that's the fun of it. Golly, the relaxation part of this is really, I think, the most important part of it. If we all wanted to go out and buy a necklace, of course it wouldn't be as cool as our necklace, but we could do that, but there's not a lot of satisfaction in just having something that's everybody has. I have these really cool black matte velvety beads I've been wanting to use. And I'm putting them up to the ends, and I'll get ready to measure it to see where the center point is and how the fit's going to be. But you see how we're graduating from the biggest down to the smallest end. It's got a graceful look to it. I put one more bead at the end because those crimp beads can fall in the holes of those metal beads. So you'll see I've got a little black, I think it's some kind of like a little Swarovski rondelle or something. And that's going to have a small enough hole to contain that crimp bead. I'll put it down in there and get a really good grip on it and pull it really tight. The other end's already done. I'm going to really make sure that it's the right tightness. Over tightening isn't a good thing. If you're slightly under tightened, don't worry about it. You can add another crimp cover and it looks like a bead and it'll take up that space. I'm going to crimp it really tight shut with those pliers. They're really better than crimp pliers. Trim it. Always test it, give it a yank, because honestly, you don't want to break it. Now I can put my crimp cover over that bead. You don't have to, but I think it's a real nice touch. And as I said, it really comes in handy if you have a little slack. You can put like 2 on each side and they look perfectly natural and they don't look like anything's wrong. You can just even it up with your pliers. And it's ready to go. And I like black, so I think I might keep it for myself this time. I give away all the other things I make at Indie Jam at my convention in October. So our earrings are cured. They're looking good. I'm fixing that slightly uneven top part. It's kind of leaning to one side. It's got a little play in it. You can bend it. I'm going to take these little tiny rings, little tiny jump rings, and I'm going to hang my charm on there. I just made that charm with my little teardrop bead and that head pin that had the ball in it, and sticking our wire on there. So all you have is 2 joins. You have your ear wire at the top and your charm at the bottom. If you want, you can leave them without the charm, but I kind of like the movement of it. And making sure that that's really closed. Nothing like losing your earring the first day you get it, so just keep a good eye on your jump rings. Make sure they're really lined up. Now, teeny tiniest ring. I guess I should tell you what the millimeters are, but I have no idea. Now you can hang your charm on there. Make sure you get a good close on that. It should be right lined up, shouldn't be crisscrossed over each other at all, just closed. Now that could be a black crystal, that could be a black bead. Because I'm using these black beads in this last piece. I won't show you all of stringing this because I know you know how to string beads. But I just want to show you how I lay it out. I have some of these little shorties I made. I might use them someplace in there. I was just having fun with the, the extra material I had. Once you have your one side mapped out, if you're satisfied with it, I'm just going to be finishing it up. I hope you guys have time